A simple walk to the bookstore becomes a showdown between power and truth. The cop thought he was in control, until a calm man with a journal and a seal badge changed everything. Late afternoon in Westport, Tennessee. The early summer air hung warm and dense, laced with the aroma of espresso drifting from nearby cafes. Wind chimes clinked softly as shop doors swung open and shut in rhythm with the ebbing crowd. On the red brick sidewalk, Malik Turner, 36, a Navy SEAL recently returned from deployment overseas, walked with calm, unhurried steps through the thinning foot traffic. Dressed in a simple gray t-shirt, dark jeans, and white sneakers, he didn't stand out, except for the quiet focus in every movement. A dark brown leather sling bag hung across his shoulder. Malik was headed toward Liberty Bookhouse, his favorite bookstore, planning to pick up a historical novel he'd had his eye on for weeks. For the first time in months, his mind felt still. The street lamps flickered on. A few cars glided through the intersection, their horns faint in the distance. And then a sharp interruption. Beep, beep! A patrol car slowly pulled the curb. Malik turned his head. The door swung open, and out stepped a tall white man in a crisp police uniform, one hand resting casually on his belt. Officer Nathan Hale, 44 years old. His gaze, cold and sharp like steel, scanned Malik from head to toe, as if sizing up a verdict before the trial. "Hey, you!" the officer barked, his voice clipped and commanding. "Where are you headed in such a rush?" Malik stopped. He tilted his head slightly, voice composed. "I'm on my way to the bookstore. Is there a problem, officer?" Hale took a step closer, hand still resting near his weapon. "What's in the bag? What are you carrying?" Calm and unshaken, Malik answered. "Just books, a laptop, and a water bottle. You'd like to check it?" A few passers-by slowed their pace. One or two pulled out their phones, not out of curiosity, but because the scene struck an unsettling chord. They had seen this before. Some had lived it. Hale faltered slightly, not expecting the black man before him to be so calm, so steady. "I'm the one asking questions here," he snapped, his tone sharpening. His hand hovered closer to the holstered gun. He pressed on. "I asked if you're transporting anything suspicious." "No," Malik replied flatly. "Hold the bag out in front of you. Now." Malik slid the strap from his shoulder, gripping the bag but not handing it over. "I'll cooperate. But first, on what grounds am I being suspected?" "You're being evasive, not answering directly." Hale shot back. "You're being detained. You match the description of a suspicious individual." A woman nearby shook her head. A young man murmured, "Heard this one before." "Which individual?" Malik asked, his voice dropping low. A beat of silence passed. All eyes now fixed on the two men, one in plain clothes, the quiet gravity of a soldier, and the other, a police officer with the rigid posture of someone ready to assert control. Malik took a deep breath and stepped back, not out of fear, but out of measured caution, to protect himself, to protect the truth. He understood this moment. In the middle of a bustling street, under buzzing lights, with phones discreetly recording, was no longer just about him. This was a test to see whether calm resolve, dignity, and battlefield-earned composure could withstand the cold weight of bias clad in a badge. He gave a faint, dry laugh and unzipped his bag slowly, deliberately, allowing Nathan to see each item clearly. A copy of Leadership Under Pressure, a leather-bound journal, a stainless steel water bottle, and a slim black tablet. Nothing more than the neatly arranged tools of a man who had lived at the edge of life and death. "Is that enough?" Malik asked, his gaze now sharp and unwavering. A heavy stillness blanketed the street like a low fog. But to Malik Turner, that silence was not oppressive. It was an opening, a chance to deliver what the man in uniform never saw coming. A lesson, a form of resistance that didn't need to be shouted. The small crowd was fully alert now. A few smartphones lifted discreetly into position. Their cameras were rolling. A woman at a nearby bus stop whispered to the man next to her, "He knows exactly what he's doing." But it wasn't enough for Hale. He inhaled sharply and stepped closer, yanking the bag from Malik's grip. Malik didn't flinch. He simply said, "Good. Search it in front of everyone here." And make sure your eyes are open when you read my name." Hale unzipped the bag and rummaged through each compartment. Inside, he found a leather journal, a book nestled neatly beside a slim laptop, a silver steel water bottle, and a weather-brown military wallet. He flipped through the journal, as if searching for a reason, any reason, to justify his baseless stop. But instead of something suspicious, he came face to face with the exact opposite. The pages were filled with clean, meticulous handwriting. Each line carried thoughtful reflections and quotes from Malik's years of service overseas. One page read, "Leadership isn't about exerting power. Leadership is the ability to remain composed when everything around you is falling apart." Nathan Hale froze. His hand remained on the page, his eyes locked on the words as if they were tunneling straight into his conscience. Then, from the main compartment, he pulled out a jet-black hardcover book, Leadership Under Fire, A SEAL's Guide to Resilience and Excellence. The author's name was embossed across the front, Malik Turner. Nathan raised an eyebrow. He glanced over at Malik, who stood tall, arms crossed over his chest, not with hostility, but with the calm assurance of someone who'd seen this play out far too many times. "You wrote this?" Nathan asked, his tone no longer accusatory, but subdued. Malik tilted his head, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "I did. That's my book. Want me to sign it for you? It's part of the curriculum at 3 military academies." A soft chuckle escaped from someone in the crowd. A woman in the front row called out, "He writes books, and you write tickets for the wrong people." The cell phone stayed raised, capturing every moment without missing a beat. Hale's face flushed crimson as he awkwardly shoved the book back into the bag. Still, he wasn't done. He checked the laptop, then the wallet. Inside, a military ID, Malik Turner, United States Navy SEAL. Hale's expression froze. The crowd sensed a shift and began murmuring. One of the phones zoomed in on the ID card in Hale's hand. He looked around the bystanders filming, then back at Malik, who stood unmoving, arms folded, eyes locked with his, not a hint of fear or retreat in his stance. You're military?" Hale stammered, his voice now a fraction of what it had been. Malik nodded, his gaze steady. "Just returned from deployment in the Middle East. On my way to the bookstore. That's it. Anything illegal about that officer?" Malik's voice was calm, steady as breath, but every word sliced through the thin armor of Hale's presumed authority like a cold blade. Hale's face flushed again, not from rage, but from the slow realization that control was slipping away. I was just doing my job," he mumbled, clumsily slipping the wallet back into bag. Malik didn't smirk, didn't gloat. He spoke softly, but each word landed with the weight of stone. "What were you looking for in my bag, Officer Hale? A justification for your assumptions? Or proof to excuse what you decided was reasonable suspicion?" Hale zipped the bag shut and pushed it back toward Malik, stepping away. "You're free to go." Malik accepted the bag, adjusted the strap, and kept his eyes locked on Hale. "Not so fast," he said, voice still low but hard as steel. "You asked me to open my bag. You went through my personal belongings. You read my journal, in the middle of a public street, with no valid reason, no warrant, just because I'm a black man walking during daylight hours." He paused, letting the weight of the moment sink in. "You owe me and everyone watching a real explanation." Hale clenched his jaw. His eyes flicked around, searching for an exit, but the crowd's silent scrutiny made every step backward feel heavier. "You match the description," he muttered, still clinging to the last frayed threads of his authority. "What description?" Malik asked again, stepping forward. "A tall black man, wearing a gray shirt and carrying a bag? On a street where a dozen people look exactly the same?" A teenager in the crowd shouted. "We got all on video. What else you got?" Hale stiffened, hands trembling slightly. But before the tension could snap, something unexpected happened. From behind Hale, a little girl, no older than 8, tugged at her mother's hand and pointed toward Malik. "Mommy, that's the guy from the video Daddy watched last night. The one who teaches soldiers." The mother blinked in surprise, then knelt down to ask her daughter quietly. She turned toward Malik with widened eyes. You're Malik Turner?" Malik gave a slight nod. The woman stepped forward, gently but firmly placing herself between Hale and Malik. "If that's how you treat a man like him," she said, her voice tight with anger, "what chance do the rest of us have?" A wave of applause broke out. An older man called out, "Officer, you're not the only one allowed to ask questions." Hale inhaled sharply but said nothing. His excuses had run dry. Malik's voice dropped, deliberate and low. "I don't want an apology," he said. "I'm not asking to be treated special. I'm asking to be treated properly." He turned slightly, addressing the crowd with a calm strength that made every word carry. "I want you to stand here, Officer Hale, right here, in front of the people you swore to protect, and explain why I was treated like a criminal." Nathan Hale stood frozen in place, surrounded by dozens of eyes, no longer fearful, but clear with judgment and disbelief. The breeze drifting through Westport brushed the sleeves of his uniform, but for the first time in years, the chill wasn't from the wind. It was from the truth, exposed and undeniable. Malik Turner took a slow, steady step forward, gaze locked on Hale like a commander sizing up a new recruit before the ranks. The air felt still, as if holding its breath. "You said I looked suspicious," Malik said, his voice calm, resonant. "But what was it, really? That my skin doesn't match the leather bag? The clean shoes? The confident walk? Or maybe the book in my backpack?" Hale pressed his lips together. Sweat now beaded at his temple, and his hand clenched his duty belt as if seeking something solid. Malik didn't wait for a response. "I serve this country. I've walked through war zones. I've carried wounded teammates on my back while bullets flew overhead. But I come home and get stopped in the middle of the street because I match a description. Because someone doesn't like the way I look." A voice rang out. That's right. From across the road, an elderly man near a lamppost nodded forcefully. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, not from shouting, but from the quiet power of a truth too long ignored. Malik's poise wasn't loud, but it landed like thunder in a room long asleep. Malik pulled from his bag the book he had written, Leadership Under Pressure, A SEAL's Guide to Resilience. He held it up for everyone to see. "This isn't just a book about combat," he said calmly. "It's about preserving dignity under scrutiny, about using discipline to push back against disrespect." He stepped closer to Hale, not to intimidate, but to stand firm like a mountain unmoved. "And you read my journal," Malik continued. "You saw the line, power is not meant to crush the weak, it's meant to protect them. Do you remember that?" Just then, a man in a navy blazer stepped out from the cafe across the street. He was a senior reporter from the Westport Tribune. Seeing the crowd and the standoff, he approached with press badge in hand. "Officer Hale, I'm with the media," he said. "Would you like to make a statement before the footage from this afternoon airs on tonight's news?" Nathan froze. The crowd murmured, the heat of sunset no longer from the sun, but from the truth being exposed. Malik didn't raise his voice. He didn't flex muscle. He simply stood his ground. And for the first time, the crowd didn't look away. They stayed. They bore witness. A college student leaned over to a friend and whispered, "That's real power. No shouting, no rage, just standing tall." As Hale tried to back away, Malik turned to the crowd and spoke gently, "Thank you for witnessing this. This isn't just my story. This happens to so many others who never get the chance to respond the right way." Applause followed, not raucous, not explosive, but steady, like an agreement made in silence. A nod to the man who chose composure over confrontation. And for Hale, for the first time in his career, he stood small, dwarfed by the very authority he once thought untouchable. Nathan swallowed hard. No one shouted accusations, but the eyes of the crowd did it for them. A boy, about 13, standing beside his mother, asked quietly, "Mom, is that guy a bad person?" Malik heard. He turned, crouched down, and smiled gently at the boy. "No, he just forgot why he wears that badge. But today, I'm going to help him remember." Applause rippled down Fifth Street, spreading like wildfire. Malik Turner didn't need to raise a fist or a voice. He just stood firm, dignified, and turned the confrontation into a masterclass, a lesson this town would never forget. Nathan Hale stood there, surrounded by phones and eyes, but stripped of command in his voice. Malik Turner's words still echoed across the small plaza like a bell of justice. Not screamed, not bitter, just raw and unshakable truth. From the back, a middle-aged woman holding her phone asked pointedly, "If he wasn't a Navy SEAL, would you have drawn your gun already?" The question cut like a blade, peeling back the badge Hale had hidden behind for years. Nathan turned, but words failed him. His face flushed, not from anger, but from the realization that he had lost, not just a Malik, but to the truth he had long chosen to ignore. Every eye was on him now, waiting for an apology, for an answer, but there was none. "How long will you stay silent?" Malik asked slowly. "You can't cuff me, so what now? Pretend it didn't happen? No, you need to hear this loud and clear. You didn't just disrespect me. You disrespected every person who's ever been stopped for the color of their skin." From the side, a young man shouted, "You stopped me walking home from a library just for wearing a hoodie and carrying a backpack." Another voice chimed in, "And you never explained, just threatened?" Cheers rose like waves. Nathan Hale's confidence was now a ghost, swept away by the righteous anger of a community that had once been silent, now standing tall for a man who dared to speak. Malik didn't move forward. He didn't threaten. He simply stood, still holding leadership under pressure, a silent symbol standing in direct contrast to everything Hale had relied on: force, authority, intimidation. And it was that calm that broke Hale. "You don't need to be stripped of your badge," Malik said. "What you lost today is bigger than that. You lost trust. You lost the one thing no uniform can cover: your character." The words landed like a verdict. No courtroom, no internal affairs. Just the truth, and a man who chose dignity over submission. A child whispered his mother, "Mom, is he a real hero?" She nodded slowly, eyes fixed on Malik. Hale bowed his head, stepped back, then turned and walked away. The crowd parted, letting him leave the street in silence. No one stopped him. No one followed. His power now reduced to echoes of a battle he never understood. As Sergeant Nathan Hale's footsteps faded into the dusk of 5th Street, a hush settled over the street like the calm after a storm. But something had shifted. No violence, no shouting, just an undeniable truth laid bare in front of dozens of witnesses. Malik Turner didn't move. He stood in the same spot, slowly slipping leadership under pressure back into his bag, zipping it closed like sealing off a chapter, leaving it exactly where it belonged. In the heart of society, still learning to listen before it judges. A college student walked up to him, hands still trembling as he tucked his phone away. "Mr. Malik." You didn't have to shout, but everyone listened. "How do you do that?" Malik smiled, warm but measured. "Because I've lived in places where losing control meant losing your life," he said. "There, calm isn't a choice, it's survival. And I bring that with me, even here, where justice still looks at skin before it listens." The young man nodded slowly, as if tucking Malik's words deep into his soul. Before leaving, Malik glanced around the crowd, quieter now, but filled with eyes that held a quiet respect. Not because he was a SEAL, but because he had shown them something more. That honor isn't stitched onto a uniform. It's revealed when you remain standing in the face of insult. On the way home, Malik passed Liberty Book House. In the fading golden light that spilled across the red brick sidewalk, he caught his reflection in the window. A black man, modest, composed, and anything but small. No spotlights, no cameras, just him and a truth that echoed within. You don't need to shout to have impact. Sometimes all it takes is standing your ground,